Be part of something larger. That is the call the President of the United States made in a speech this past week. Be part of something larger, or that's how I heard it. No, I don't actually care for all the politics around what was said in Tampa or in Charlotte. But when the leader of the free world says we have to consider how we must be part of something larger, I start to thinking. I start asking myself, what am I part of? Am I part of the iTunes community when I buy a song to play on my iPod? Am I part of something when I sit at home and watch Dancing with the Stars, maybe? Somebody asked me, do you really watch? I said, no, but that's okay. I am part of something larger, though, when I think about the kinds of things we are going to think about and do this year in our year of engagement and service. When I take time to consider who my neighbors are. When I think about the communities I am part of and what I can do in them. When I think of what it means to be a global citizen, I start to begin to become part of something larger. As the poet Mary Oliver says, I announce my place in the family of things. These are the spiritual tasks that we are about this year. And the good news is it's not about any one of us. It is about all of us. Even as we are busy composing our I worlds, as the market wants us to do, personalizing every single thing in our lives, we here begin to say we are part of something larger. We are getting out of our comfort zone. We are finding partners and friends that we didn't know we had. We are challenging ourselves about the perceptions we have of others and their perceptions they have about us. And we are taking time to think through what we can give back, and we are putting our feet on the ground and serving others. As President Obama was talking about his grandparents, knowing that they were part of something larger, that they were part of a generation that understood that, I started to think about my own grandmother. She was a first-generation Italian-American woman. She was 5'2" and skinny as a rail. And she didn't graduate high school, but she was smarter than most people I have ever met. She was a pull-yourself-up-by-the-bootstraps kind of person. And she had a deep sense of herself and her place in her neighborhood, in her community, and as a global citizen. She knew the people around her in her neighborhood because they were invited in to have coffee and meals in her kitchen. She knew she was part of a community because my grandfather was the town doctor who officed in the front of the house, and my grandmother took care of people out the back door of the house when they came to her with different kinds of advice. Sometimes my decidedly anti-abortion grandfather counseled women in the front of the house, and my pro-choice grandmother counseled them in the back of the house. She served as a kind of role model, an advisor in her community without ever being elected or hired or sanctioned. And she knew that being part of the world, being a global citizen was important. I know that because she took my brother and I with my grandfather back to Italy when we were boys to meet our family there, to build a bridge over the ocean that was crossed many years ago. And they took us to Africa to see the third world, the undeveloped world, and to help us understand how privileged we were. She influenced me in many ways, but as I was getting closer to this moment, I realized she influenced me in these ways. So here we are with a year of engagement and service built on the idea of understanding how we are neighbors and parts of communities and parts of a globalized world. As I cast the vision for this, and my colleague and our lay leaders, these wonderful leaders, came together, they began to shape this vision in ways that we didn't expect, and so here we are. And there is a reason we are doing this, besides the fact that it is fun and that we will know each other and that we will serve. There is a reason embodied in a theology about why we are doing this. And so I want to show you this painting that I think embodies this reason. This painting is a painting by Peter Bruegel. It is called The Fall of Icarus, and it was painted in 1558. Now, you know the story of Icarus. He and his father were imprisoned on the island of Crete. To get Icarus off the island, they built wax wings with which Icarus flew up into the sky. He flew too close to the sun, and the wings melted, and he fell into the Aegean. In this painting, the foreground are peasants tilling the field. In the background on the right, you'll see a sailing ship in the harbor, and Icarus is almost invisible, but he is here in the lower corner. You like that? W.H. Auden, the great English poet of the 20th century, who lived to see great human suffering in his generation, wrote a poem about this painting. In it, he said, "In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away, quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had on the white legs disappearing into the green water. And the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to and sailed on calmly." So here we find in this painting a suggested paradigm, I think, for the vocation of the church, which is to reveal the hidden, to point to the hidden realities of human suffering, and to point to the realities that offer it release. The vocation of the church is to point to that which we would prefer to ignore, like the painter of this painting is pointing out. James Luther Adams, a Unitarian scholar in the 20th century, said that we are the religion of the successful and would rather conceal the suffering. We would rather remain in our pews purchasing a distance from the world. In rather implicating words, he says, "Thus the church betrays the world with a kiss." Adams was a man who took his faith and put it into action in World War II and went and helped free the Jews from Hitler. He was a believer in the prophet's call to serve and the prophethood of all believers, that is us, to act. He said the Jewish prophets said we are a covenanted people responsible not only for human kindliness, but also for the character of our institutions, especially for seeking justice for those who require it. The prophethood of all believers, you and me, are urged to understand our mutuality with our neighbors and our communities and our globalized world on behalf of the divine, and to see divinity among us. To understand our mutuality with each other and with those who are suffering. This is my best and latest understanding of the word God. The experience of mutuality that requires us to find ways in our fractured and embattled world to go beyond those battle lines. To go beyond, as the painting said, our busy lives of plowing and harvesting, but to see the spiritual task that calls us from the plow to the Icarus who falls in the water. From the plow, not like the old hymn said to keep your hand on the plow. I'm saying take your hand off the plow and go help the suffering. We think of this year as a way to serve, to come down from the crow's nest of that ship that is too busy to bother with the tragedy, to take your hand off the plow and go and serve, and also to engage with those we do not know, even those in the pews around us, even those in our neighborhoods and our communities, to help each other understand our mutuality. To be part of this church today is not to stand by, but to engage and serve. Now, I know many of you live lives of helping others, and it is fine to come here and be nourished spiritually. But it is time for us as a church to make a difference, to go out together and serve our communities and our neighbors in our world, saying we are doing this in the name of our church. And we have a great legacy. I don't know if you know all the stories, but Bob Rabel, the minister here of 40s through the 60s, was known to make a great difference in the integration of schools even before integration was a good word in Texas. Louise Raggio, a member of our church, worked on the legal rights of women in Texas, and Ned and Jeannie Fritz changed the landscape of environmentalism in the city, even as they sat in these pews. And the women of our church with Planned Parenthood of Dallas at that time, brought about the Roe v. Wade case saying women had the right to choose. And so many more people making a difference out of these pews, for goodness sakes. We have a great legacy. So this year, we build on that legacy, and we serve, and we engage. It will be good for our souls, and it will be good for the soul of our city. It is our vocation to expand on mutuality and there to know the divine. May we take a step, however small or large, toward doing that this year together. Our theme year starts today. Yes. What a great acronym. The year of engagement and service. All faiths speak of putting your faith into action. Ours is not the only. The Quran says it is simple. He who does good for others has nothing to fear. So let us enter this year of engagement and service together, committing to put our names and check a box and to wear a sticker, but even more to go into conversation with each other and to go out into the world as a church. Indeed, thank you, Melissa, for the reminder of those words that were not mine, but were the words of two people imprisoned in Phoenix, Arizona, trying to find their mutuality. When they said to each other, we can be better neighbors. We can be a better community. We can be a better world if we use that mantra, I see you. I love you. Si se puede. Yes, we can. Let us join together in a year of service and engagement. Amen.